Hello and welcome to Breakthrough Conversations with Coach Pete, and I'm Gloria Lybecker. Earlier today I was speaking with one of my clients and they were really struggling. And I just think it's so important in my experience to be able to open that door, so to speak, to meet people right where they are and to take whatever time's needed to resonate with how it feels for them to be them, so they don't feel so alarmed and alone. Because in my experience, feeling alarmed and alone is one of the probably the most scary and vulnerable places to ever be. And to allow somebody to recognize where you are and for that to still be okay, for that to feel safe. What's your experience around that?
Well, it reminds me of something that I always need to remind myself of,
Mm.
and it relates to my coaching. We develop relationships with our clients. That's how the coaching process really works. There's a trust that builds up, and you're in there together. And I always have to remind myself, or often have to remind myself, that it's not about me and where I want to go or where I want my client to go. It has to be on their time. It has to be when they're ready. So we really need to stay really connected and listen and have the patience. Example, I have a couple of clients that are going through loss and grief.
Mm.
Now, that's a heavy part of the human condition that we all go through.
Yeah.
Different times, different kinds of losses. We're at different ages and stages when we experience loss. Um, and I just need, I with, I need to remind myself that it's their time process to go through. And I may have an idea that might help them, but it has to be when they're ready. It has to be when they're open. And that's what's very dynamic about the coaching process is it's two ways,
Yeah.
definitely. And if we're not engaged in that, sometimes I could feel like I'm rushing somebody, and that's really not good. There's a balance, or as you would put it, a harmony.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I find it to be really key to ask, to get permission, to ask for consent, to check in and see how is that for you, to the person I'm speaking with. And I'm making guesses because I don't know. I'm doing my best to really resonate with where they are. And so I check in and ask. And so the approach I use is very, very body centered, because the body's always communicating. But are we paying attention? Are we listening? And that's really a key piece for me, for my own healing journey, to grow and evolve into who I am today. Yeah, it took a lot of courage to allow somebody to see me in my um, vulnerability.
I'm smiling because you used a very important word. Simple word, a three-letter word. Ask.
Mhm.
Ask. Ask the client, ask your partner, ask your child, ask your friend. It's
Mhm.
always good to ask. And then, of course, to listen.
Mhm.
And that's really building trust in a relationship.
Yeah, so when you ask, for me, I'm asking, I'm checking in. Did I catch it? Is that true for you? And then see, and then I can pivot, I can shift, and I get more clarity. And when I communicate in that way, then I find that the other person I'm speaking with, they also gain more clarity within themselves. And that's what it's really about, is being able to recognize, be recognized, to see that next step. And that does come from within each one of us. But when we can have a conversation with somebody else, we can have so much more clarity, because we don't need to do this life alone. I don't believe we were created for life alone. We need relationships, ones that we trust, ones that we enjoy, and ones that stretch us too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, in your practice, how do you meet with people? Is it one way, I think I know the answer to this, but I figured I'd better ask. What are the different ways that you engage with your clients?
Well, it depends on what my client's seeking. So I meet on Zoom primarily, especially since there was so many things in the world where people were scared to meet in person. But
Right,
I can work with people internationally when I'm on Zoom. And then I also meet with couples. I also work with groups. So it just depends. What's really the most fun for me is when people come to the sanctuary here and they have sessions with me outside in nature with my herd of horses. And
right.
so I do that also one on one. I do it with couples, or I can do it with small groups. And that's just really quite lovely. So those are the different ways. I've actually done Zooms where I introduce the horses to people as well. So that's
That's
been
awesome.
pretty amazing.
That's awesome. For me, I don't have the horses as part of my practice or the ranch or whatever, property you work from. But I offer three different ways. And again, it depends on the individual, it depends on the client, potential client. Certainly Zoom, used to be Skype, now it's Zoom. Sometimes in person, because I've always had access to an office to sit. Some people need to look at you in the face and eye to eye. Um, and I also have quite a few clients. It's strictly by phone,
Mm,
strictly by phone. Sometimes, so I think it's connected to how people learn also.
mm.
Some people are more auditory, some people are more visual. I think it's connected to that. You probably know that better than I. But I'm always amazed and love when someone connects strictly by phone. It can be a very focused way to have coaching. It really can. Now, you have to pick up on cues a little differently than seeing someone, whether on Zoom or in person. So I really find that interesting. Everybody's a little different. I'm just starting with a new client, and I was surprised. I mean, she's fairly young too. Anybody younger than me is young. Um, and she chose phone. And I was kind of surprised. But it also, like you were talking, which Zoom does, it allows me and you to work with somebody anywhere in the world, which is really exciting. I mean, so she's on another coast. She's on the East Coast. Doesn't matter. You pick a time, boom. And phone can be really amazing as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah, when I started my practice, we didn't have Zoom. We didn't have video feeds like that. And so any of even the group calls and things, it was all you're listening. It's all just audio. And so it was a big shift for groups to then all of a sudden you can see everybody. People felt exposed. They got
sure.
nervous about it. And so I would always allow people, you can have your video on or your video off. It's okay, whichever is okay with you. And there would be some people that it took them a few years before they would let people see them. And then because when they started to feel like they were accepted, then it wasn't so scary. But many times it depends upon the focus of the conversation. So depending upon what kind of a course or class I'm offering, it's going to attract different people
Right.
depending on where they are in their life. And yet when you start, there's something magical about getting to be with others that are sharing a similar journey, that it then opens up the horizon, and people learn, in my experience, they learn so much more, profoundly more, when they are on a journey with others, because they learn from their own experience, but they learn from watching other people, they resonate with other people. And so the group learning, group dynamics are powerful. And that's a lot of fun too.
I totally agree. I've done a lot of group work over the years, and there's it's dynamic in a different way, and it's so participatory, and people learn from each other, and it always comes down to connection, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And how people connect. If it's by the phone, that's fine. If it's on Zoom, that's fine. If it's in a group, if it's in person, if it's with horses and people, it's connection. Like
yeah,
I bet that work you do with horses, that must be unbelievable.
it
The
is.
connection with the person to person. You throw an animal like a horse, which are, to me, they're majestic, and I just think they're amazing.
No
Cool
matter
stuff.
the size.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty.
Excellent, excellent. A lot of ways, a lot of ways to do this personal growth work.
There are, and it can be so unique to the individual, and that's what I love about the work that we do, and that we do something so similar and so different. That makes it beautiful.
Yeah, well, we learn from each other. I know I learned from you.
Yeah,
And then then a whole other area works out, which I've done a lot of, and that's collaboration, co-facilitating. I love that. I seek that. I look for that. Different types of groups that can be run in, as co-leaders. That's a whole other dynamic also, which I think
it
uh,
is.
is really rich.
Yeah, maybe we'll put a course together someday. That'd be fun.
By golly, let's put on a show. Yes.
Okay, stay tuned. We'll let you know when that comes.
Stay tuned. All right, great.